Hello friends, welcome back to another video. If you are new here, I'm Megan, and here we talk about all things books, writing, grammar, and more. If you haven't already, please make sure to give this video a like. It helps out my channel a ton. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you're notified every time I upload a new video. Before we jump into the video, real quick, I just want to remind you guys that this is the last week I am recruiting for the street team for Queendom of Chaos. So if you'd like to be a part of the team, click this video right here to get all the details on the street team, the prizes, and how to join. Today's video is going to be packed full of information. We are talking about the developmental editing process for self-publishing authors. I finished up with my developmental editor a little over a month ago, so I've taken the time to process everything so that I can give you all the information that I can. So, what is a developmental editor? A developmental editor is someone who looks at the overarching story. They look at plot holes, character development, character arcs, scenes that you may need to delete, areas where you can expand, genre expectations, structural issues, and so on. They do not do editing such as spelling errors, grammar, typesetting, etc. They may do some of these things, but you will still need to hire an editor and a proofreader after. Why would you need a developmental editor? A developmental editor is a professional who's unbiased toward your story. They're going to see the faults in your novel that you just can't pick up on because you're too close to it. And they will help you clean it up, give you the good, the bad, all of it, and help you get ready for publication. When do you do the developmental edit? You'll want to do the developmental edit as almost your last draft. You should have already done your self-edits, the critique partner process, the beta reading process, plus your self-edits again after all that. Then comes the developmental edit. After that, you do line edits, copy edits, and the proofread. If you're on a strict schedule for publishing, make sure to reach out to a developmental editor 4 to 6 months before you need them, because good developmental editors book up fast. What makes a good editor? I have a list of 12 things that I personally look for and would recommend you also look for when hiring a developmental editor. Number 1, experience in the field. Even the newest editors should have some sort of experience in the field. Whether they were on free editing sites, have done editing swaps, or did small editing projects for free, it's going to be very rare that you're going to find an editor who has absolutely nothing as far as experience in the editing world. Number 2, they have experience in your genre. Each genre has a set of certain expectations to fit the genre and age category, so you want to make sure you're working with someone who understands your genre. Number 3, communication. You want someone who replies to you quickly. If you send them a message, they are responding to you within about 24 hours. You want someone who answers all of the questions you ask. If you send them an email with 3 questions, they need to be addressing those 3 questions, not just 1 or 2 of them, because that's not great communication. You also want someone who gives you expectations as well as listens to your expectations, such as turnaround time, the format that you're going to be editing in, whether you're on Google Docs or Word or whatever, and so on. Number 4, they're giving you a contract to sign. I will not work with someone in any part of my life, even outside of writing, if I don't have a contract with them. Now, a contract protects both people. On your end, you're making sure that you're getting the work done, and it should explicitly say what you're getting. It should say, hey, I'm editing for this, and this. It also protects the editor because they make sure that they get paid. So if you're working with an editor who doesn't want a contract, that really doesn't make sense, because why would they not want to ensure that you're paying them for the work? If someone doesn't use contracts, I tend to not work with them. Number 5, they have competitive rates. The editor's rates should reflect experience as well as turnaround time. If they've only been an editor for a few months and only worked on 1 or no books, then they can't be charging the same as someone who's been in the business for 30 years and has hundreds of books under their belt. So they need to have rates based on experience as well as the work that they're doing for you. Number 6, they have their own website. Editors need to have a landing page for you to go to look at rates, their portfolio, turnaround time, etc. Personally, if an editor doesn't have a website or they just have a Facebook page, that's not enough for me to feel comfortable working with them. Number 7, honesty. Part 1 of honesty being they don't hide things from you like their prices. If you can't find a rate on their website and you ask them for a rate and they're still not giving it to you, that's a big red flag. I don't know why someone would be hiding their rates from you unless they're trying to trick you later on. You want to work with someone who's open about their work and what they're going to be doing for you. There is absolutely no reason to be hiding anything. And part 2 of honesty is they give you honest feedback in your work. You want someone to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. If your editor tells you based on chapter 1 that they wouldn't read further if you weren't paying them, you need to pay attention to that sort of feedback. Yes, it may suck to have to rework these sections, but they're there to make you better. You aren't paying someone to stroke your ego, you're paying someone to make your book better. Number 8, they're open-minded. Now, we all have our own beliefs, and that's totally fine, everyone is different. But your editor shouldn't be bringing those beliefs into the editing process. While they can absolutely educate you on a topic, if you're completely wrong, which is what they should be doing, fixing errors, they are not there to tell you how their viewpoint is better than your viewpoint. Books can have so many dark or disturbing or sensitive themes, so discuss with your editor beforehand what those themes are and if they're comfortable reading them. Once they say they're okay with those themes, then you're good to go. Number 9, turnaround time. While there is a lot in the process of developmental editing, there is still a timeline that they should be sticking to. If an editor told me that it was going to take 3 to 4 months to work on my 80,000 word book, I'm not going to work with them because that is way too long. On the opposite end, if they say my 80,000 word book is going to take 1 to 2 weeks, I'm probably also not going to work with them because to me that means they're not taking the time and giving the attention to my story that it really needs. They're just kind of rushing through it, and I may not give the feedback that I feel the book should have. Now, this is different from if you need it rushed. If you have to have your 80, 90, 100,000 word book done in 2 weeks, then you should expect to be paying rates for the rush. Number 10, they have a lot to say about your book. Your editor should be covering not only what you need to fix, but also the good things in your novel so you know how to fix the bad things in your novel. So they shouldn't just be every 10, 20, 30 pages highlighting something and having one word to say. That is not a thorough developmental edit. They really should be getting into the nitty-gritty of the novel, asking you all the questions, pointing out every little potential plot hole, anything that they can think of. When you get it back, you're going to be dizzy from the amount of notes that are there from your developmental editor. Number 11, they provide you with a sample edit. Any good editor, whether they're a developmental editor, a copy editor, or a proofreader, should be offering you a free sample edit anywhere from 1,000 to about 3,000 words. This is extremely important because you need to know how they work and you both need to see how you work together. They can see your style and be able to give you a better quote on what your book is actually going to cost you, and you both get a feel for each other's communication and how the whole process is going to go. I sent out my novel to so many people for a free sample edit, and some of them just did not click. You need to know if you're a good fit for each other before you sign on to such a big project. And number 12, post-editing. You'll want to work with someone who will work with you once they send you your manuscript back to you. Talk with them up front to make sure once they send you your document, you can still ask follow-up questions. Perhaps if they told you to rewrite a scene, maybe you can rewrite a scene and send it to them and they'll give you some sort of general feedback and say maybe, hey, yeah, that's what I was talking about, or try again. But being able to ask those follow-up questions after the process is very, very important. Sometimes you need a little clarification from their notes. So if they're telling you they will not communicate with you at all once they send you your manuscript, I would kind of think about that. Where should you look to find a developmental editor? There are so many awesome places to find a developmental editor. You can get references from fellow authors. That's a great way. Getting a reference for someone's book you love and you respect them and you trust their expertise in the process can be hugely helpful. Your bookshelf. So many books will, somewhere around the copyright page or maybe even in the acknowledgements, will list who they worked with as an editor or a cover artist or so on. So definitely, if you have a book that you love, see if you can find who they worked with. Google. You can Google and see whose personal websites pop up and go from there. Their websites should have testimonials, a portfolio, rates, so on. Facebook groups. This is personally where I found my developmental editor. I don't remember exactly which Facebook group it was in, but I know that I was on a Facebook group and I asked, hey, who's a developmental editor? A bunch of people sent me their websites that I checked out, looked at references, all that good stuff. YouTube. Many of the AuthorTubers that you watch are also editors or work in some sort of other capacity in the writing industry. I know that I personally have gotten proofreading jobs from people who watch my YouTube videos. They hear that I'm a proofreader and then they reach out to me and say, hey, I need my book proofread. So the same thing goes for developmental editors. If you're watching someone you love, they could be an editor. And basically any other social media platform, if you're out there asking, there are people in the community who will reach out to you. How much does a developmental editor cost? Whew, that is quite a question. They're There's really no straight answer for this. You can find a developmental editor at just about any price for any budget. But for the most part, you definitely get what you pay for. So if someone is giving you a bargain deal for $100 for a developmental edit of a 90,000 word book, you're gonna get $100 worth, which is not great. You are paying for their experience, their expertise, and their time, which is not cheap. Remember, most books are going to take 1 to 2 months. So if they're giving their full attention to your novel for 1 to 2 months, you should be expecting to pay a good amount for that. Now, Google will give you all sorts of typical rates for what a developmental editor is, but I'm going to just tell you what I have found. I was given rates anywhere from about 0.004 per word all the way up to 0.05 per word. Now that is a huge range. So you'll want to find someone in a budget that you're comfortable with, but also who checks all the other boxes. And some developmental editors are also line editors, copy editors, or proofreaders. And a lot of times they'll have packages for these. For instance, my developmental editor was also my line editor, so I got a little bit of a discount for combining those services. Now, I will go into more detail about what I actually paid for my developmental editor in a video coming after I release my novel. It will be the breakdown of the entire cost of publishing, so definitely make sure to look forward to that in the coming months. So what is the exact process of working with a developmental editor? Well, most of your communication is going to be well before you actually give them your manuscript. I spoke with my editor on and off for months before sending my work their way. We talked about everything that I've already said you should look for in an editor. We talked about the expectations, the turnaround time, the cost, their experience. They did a sample edit for me. I told them the things in my book to see if they were comfortable with that, and on and on and on, to see if we were a good fit for each other. This process can be very lengthy, so do not leave it until the last minute. Once I sent them my manuscript, it was pretty quiet. Now, some editors may not give you anything while they're doing your manuscript. I personally requested that they check in every week or so, just to know, like, to ease my mind that, hey, your project is still on my mind. So you can definitely ask a developmental editor to do that, or you can even reach out to them every week or so and say, hey, just kind of checking in, seeing how things are going. It is not a bad thing to keep communication. Now, you're not going to want to communicate every single day, bugging them. Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going? They're probably going to get annoyed with that, and you're taking their focus away from your book. But every week or two is totally fine. When I received my manuscript back from my editor, there were so many notes. So many notes. So the first thing that I did was looked at the top. They had notes that equaled probably about 2 pages. Now, what these notes did was give me an overview of all the notes they were about to give me, anything that I needed to know about the notes, their thoughts on the story as a whole. They said, hey, I really love this story, just so you don't have to go through this whole thing and figure out if I liked your story. I did. So they'll give you little tidbits about your story, what they liked about it, what you need to improve on before getting into the specifics in your actual manuscript. That way, if I ever had a question while reading through the 10 million notes that they gave me, I could just reference that first page instead of having to reach out to them to bug them for every little thing. I received my manuscript through Microsoft Word, as we had discussed beforehand, so they use track changes for me. But if you want to use Google Docs or something else, definitely talk to them beforehand and make sure they even work on that platform. Like I said, my editor was also my line editor, so we did 3 rounds of editing. They did a developmental round, and then they did kind of like a cleanup developmental edit with the line edit, and then they finished up the 3rd round with the line edits. So what they did for me as the line editor was go through my story line by line, fixing the actual structure of my story and my prose. So after the entire process of me fixing everything, I had very few questions for my editor. But I had talked to them beforehand about, hey, if I have follow-up questions, can I reach out to you? They said absolutely. So I did direct those questions to them, and they answered them quick, within 24 hours, no problem, and then I knew the answer. I also let them know that my story was a series and asked them if they would be interested in working with me on the other books. You know, we didn't put anything in a contract, but they did say they liked my work enough that they would work with me again. Now, you might think, of course they're gonna work with you again, you're paying them money. But as a proofreader, I can tell you, there are some clients you do not want to work with again. So if you are trying to underpay them, or you're being too much, or your story made them uncomfortable, an editor can turn you down from working with you again. So if you are in a series, just ask. Don't assume that they will work with you. There may have been something about the process that they were not comfortable with. So if you want to work with them again in the future, again, do not assume, reach out to them, make sure that they're willing to work with you again, and book them as far in advance as you can. As you can tell, there are about a million factors that go into finding the right editor. And just because an editor was great for your friend or someone else doesn't mean that they'll be the perfect fit for you. So you need to go through and decide, what are the most important things to you? Is your budget the most important thing? Is their experience? Is references most important? Is it most important that they get it done in a week? What is the thing that's most important to you? And find an editor who's going to fit those expectations. So do your research, ask your questions, and if at any point something doesn't feel right to you, follow your gut and walk away. You can always find a different editor. There are thousands of them out there. You're not missing out just because you turned away from one. So I know that was a lot, but we made it. If you guys found this video helpful, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more bookish and writing related videos. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.